Financial distress is one of the worst consequences of the coronavirus, seemingly second only to the virus itself. And the Iran Emotional Distress and Counseling Hotline has fielded at least 70 calls since May from people threatening imminent suicide over economic factors. This is up from just 10 in the same period last year, and it makes up a third of the suicide calls. Joining us to discuss is Dr. Shiri Daniels, Executive Director of Counseling at the Iran Hotline. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. What do you do when you get a caller, and what are your emergency protocols for someone who might hurt themselves or others?
Well, first of all, we listen to them without judgment. Listening saves lives. We let people tell us their story and validate their emotions. For most of them, it's actually the first time they opened up and reached out for help. When we conduct an initial risk assessment and understand that the caller's life is an immediate risk, we contact emergency forces in order to prevent suicide and save lives. And since June, we activated this protocol 3 times a day on average, as opposed to twice a day previously.
What kinds of people are most likely to be calling in right now? What's the profile of the demographics?
Well, there's no one profile for dealing with emotional pain. It's a part of the human condition. Human life is filled with crisis, and none of us can escape it. We all share the same reality and are in this together. We get calls from men and from women at all ages, youth, soldiers, parents, the elderly, all over Israel. They are answered by our extremely dedicated 1,400 volunteers and staff members in Israel and in North America.
It's incredible. All right, now we mentioned that economic factors cause up to a third of these suicide calls. What makes up the other 2/3?
Well, at Iran's hotline and online service, we are experiencing a dramatic spikes in calls from 500 a day in routine to over 1,000 calls daily. People share with us their emotions of anxiety, stress, and loneliness. Many of them talk about conflicts with family members, and also domestic violence is sadly on the rise. People who deal with severe mental distress talk about depression, suicide ideation, and a sense of hopelessness. Financial distress can trigger crisis and risk, in addition to personal traits, mental illness, and lack of social support.
Wow. All right. And what advice maybe can you give to people who are facing serious financial hardships right now amidst the pandemic especially?
Well, when we experience extreme emotional pain, we feel all alone and we don't think clearly. We have this tunnel vision and lose perspective. It's important to remember that even difficult situations have more than one solution, and this situation is temporary. You are not alone. Reach out for help. It makes all the difference.
What about other people who maybe know someone who is a risk themselves or others? Other than maybe just reporting them, is there something that they can do at home?
Yeah, well, the first thing to do is to listen. To really listen, although it causes a lot of anxiety and it's stressful, to just hear what the person is feeling, the thoughts he is experiencing, and invite him to share his inner world. When we feel someone is at risk, it's important not to hesitate to ask him, did you have thoughts of hurting yourself? Are you considering suicide? It's important not to be afraid from this question, because this question doesn't give people ideas, but it prevents him from feeling lonely, and he feels understood, and that we give him a lifeline, hope.
Dr. Daniels, thank you so much for being with us. For everybody watching at home, if you want to learn more or you want to donate, or if you or someone you know is suffering from emotional or even suicidal distress, please do not hesitate to reach out. Iran has a wonderful website that you can reach. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.